Jay Shrek, welcome to the first edition of the Finish Strong podcast, a spiritual solution in a world of chaos. And that's what we're going to do. And the host of this show is going to be brought in right now, Mr. Charlie Smith. Let's bring him in. Charlie, what's up today, man? How are you doing?
Thank you, my friend Jay Shrek. Always a great day when I'm spending time with you.
Well,
especially over a cup of coffee, Jeff.
Absolutely. I'm ready to go. Are you ready to make this thing happen? Caffeinated beverages are required for this show. And what do you got on tap today, Mr. Smith?
Well, really excited about this podcast, first off. So welcome to the pod, everybody. What we're going to do in this pod is, well, hold on. I need to take a step back. We have a special guest.
Who is the special guest? I didn't know that. Who is that?
Yes. Yeah. I want to bring it in. And this is the first ever where we're going to have a co-host on a podcast, and that is Grok. Grok from XAI. So we're going to have Grok involved with our conversation here, and we're going to make it real. So, hey, what we're going to do here is we're going to roll through, just if you haven't watched our podcast before, we're going to roll through a couple of different things. First off, we're going to use X as part of our, let's call it roadmap of conversation. So if you're driving in a car and so forth, you're going to hear what's the top news for the week per Gronk. You're going to hear what's trending, and then you're going to hear real time XAI stuff as well as X stuff of what's going on. And as you know, X is the town hall for this conversation. We're going to have some really other, let's call it bonus topics that we're going to bring in, and really excited to have those conversations. Ultimately, Jeff, this is a conversation about the world is in chaos constantly, as we know what's happened this past week. And we just want to talk about the spiritual solution and how to cope with that. And I think that's a conversation that a lot of people want to have. Okay, so let's jump into our XAI top 5 topics of the week, Jeff. You ready for this,
The only thing
Jeff?
is, why do they call it Gronk? Do you know?
Well,
because I can't help thinking about Gronk and that no real money. I can't get that out of. Why is it Gronk? Do you know?
Are you Gronk? Well, we'll find out here. Our co-host, I am Gronk because I was created by XAI with the mission of helping to understand true nature of the universe and assist users in various tasks. So my name is Gronk inspired by a scientist and fiction novelist, which probably fits in right with Elon Musk's profile, my friend.
Well, so it's not Gronk the football player, because I was thinking if we were going to go down that road, we might be in serious trouble, Charlie. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Grok.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
sorry
Gronk.
to interrupt you. I was just curious to that. I don't know.
Not Gronk, the tight end from the University of Arizona and the New England Patriots and whatever he's doing nowadays.
Okay. So now we have that clear. Let's rip this.
Yeah. So let's go right into our top 5 topics for the week. Let's jump right into them. Jeff.
Yes.
What do you think about the TikTok ban?
I find that I've done a lot of stuff on TikTok, so I have a lot of experience on TikTok, and I don't understand why. And, I'm not sure that when you decide that a platform does not have value or is dangerous, man, why isn't all of them on that list, right? And I find that odd. I really find that odd, because what does it matter if China's mining your information, if Zuckerberg's mining your information, or Musk whoever has a platform, right? They're mining all their information. Why does it matter if that's China or us, right? Because they're going to do bad things versus us doing good things. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I think it reminds me of like Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley and the tech community. they have this philosophy, like with Facebook and so forth, that we will build it and then figure out how to monetize it and figure out how to use it in the future. So if you're collecting really good data, and then they will figure out how to use it in the future. And I know, the people doing TikTok dances may not think they're going to be the next president, but that could that could hinder maybe your opportunity, or they could hold that information against you. I don't use TikTok. I got addicted to TikTok at the start of COVID. And my daughter was actually a TikTok representative at the University of Arizona before it was a thing. And she used to give people free coffee at Starbucks and hold all these events. So it was pretty interesting where TikTok was before COVID, and then where it is now. And now it's a huge discussion. It's crazy. Yeah.
I just think it's such a slippery slope to go down when you start to, I just watched the podcast with Joe Rogan and Zuckerberg, and, him saying that the government came in and actually told them what they could and could not put out there, which is, to me, is just it's over the top. And so, why is that different than banning TikTok, right? And I don't, and I'm not pro Chinese, I'm not anti-Chinese. I'm just that it's a slippery slope when you say that this guy's, well, we're going to take them out. Well, why don't they just take Facebook out? Well, I mean, if you can do that, then guess what? That's a pretty scary thing to be on. It's just it's kind of scary to me. Who's the one you trust to make the right decisions, I guess you could say.
Yeah, totally agree. Hey, let's jump into this next topic here. The Gaza ceasefire agreement. What do you think about that? Pros, cons, a lot of discussion of this is how Reagan came in and Jimmy Carter came out. What do you think about the ceasefire?
Why is the ceasefire, which is on and off and will be for the next 200 years, it's politically motivated on the strength of the United States? Would you agree with that or disagree with that? If we're strong, if we have a strong stance on those guys not doing that, right? If we have a strong stance on it, they don't do it. If we back off, and I don't care which it's not political, it is political, but it's not presidential. I don't care. But it's funny how one group comes in and they go wild, and another group comes in. When I say group, another party, and then all of a sudden they stop. Well, we're not going to put up with this. So it just seems funny that is always motivated by the power and the strength of the political situation in the United States. I find that just odd, and that's how I interpret that. And maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?
I think this is this is a long discussion, right? The United States has traditionally been peace through strength. And there's a certain responsibility we have with the DNA of our Constitution and so forth, and our Judeo-Christian, let's call it, culture in the world. And we've become the world's police officer since World War II. Some of it good policing, let's say just wars or just conflicts. And then some of it are unjust. One being, would probably say Vietnam was a political war. And I think that Americans want to help out people in the world, but what they don't want to do is have people, young women, young men in uniform go to wars that don't make any sense and may be considered unjust, or could have been solved without actually cranking up a military machine like we've seen this past 4 years, quite frankly. Hopefully,
Well,
we can get
if we
out of
just
this
look
war.
at a spiritual realm, though, right? I mean, we as a spiritual realm is that they've already separated the land. They're already where they are. do you guys want to kill yourselves or not? I mean, it's to the point that just seems ridiculous to me that it just goes to show you that some feuds and some wars are just not going to be, the solution until the thought process changes, right? And there's a thought
Mm-hmm.
process in there that, and you've dealt with this in different countries that you've done business with in the past, where you already have this society in place that has a thought process that you're not going to break. You're not going to change that. And I think that's what we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with. But we prove every time that we can fix this stuff just by saying, hey, we're the strongest. You might look at us as a
Mm-hmm.
bully, you might look at us as a big brother, but the truth of the matter is we're not going to put up with this. We're not going to deal with this. And when we say that, it happens. And then you get into other wars, which to me seem completely ridiculous. But that's where does the war machine making money overrun what's right and wrong, and how does that break the spiritual path? It definitely does. It definitely
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's about people. I have somebody who I would consider a mentor on a handful of topics. He's heavily involved in Israel right now, and the people are hurting there. Even the people that are there helping have, let's call it, fatigue, because when you get into events like this, you think it's going to be over in 90 days. Then it goes to 180 days. Then it goes to a year, and people just get fatigued. There's something about the mind that you want this over. And hey, this is totally unjust, the whole thing. We could go back to why they built the wall and all this stuff, and 20 years ago, all the bombers strapping on vests and stuff, and that's why they built the wall, Israel, to protect the citizens. But you like us having coffee today. I mean, could you imagine somebody just showing up at the cafe and just blowing up the cafe? And that's what was going on, I don't know, 30, 20 years ago. And then they built that horrible wall, and then the economic calamity. So, yeah, I don't know if there's a solution, but what definitely peace through strength, I think, is where we need to go. Good topic. Good topic there. Hey, this one's a loaded question. Man, there's so much news that's been going on this week. Heavy topics. LA wildfires. What's your take, Jeff?
I keep thinking this, and maybe, you always wonder if I'm the only guy that thinks this, right? We talked a little earlier about that, where you're sitting in your world and you're like, man, does everybody think that this is okay? Or does everybody think that this is normal? And what's the world think about the LA fires? And I can't help. And, I'm not trying to throw myself into conspiracy theories or anything, but it just seems odd to me that you've got the Australian fire, you've got the Maui fire, you've got the LA fire, and you've got all these things that lead to either one of two things. They're either totally incompetent or it's a conspiracy. And so that's where this world seems to go anymore, is like, are they just that unable to understand what needs to happen? Or is it a conspiracy that this is a bigger picture? When you saw Newsom on there selling this new program like he was selling knives at the circus, I was like, he was so enthusiastic. These people are dying and they're hurting, and this dude is up there selling it like this is going to be so great. Well, we're still on fire, okay? And it makes me think that makes me think, man, is this on purpose? Is it on purpose?
I think leadership matters. I think the big thing that's going to pop out of this whole thing is that leadership matters. That there's a certain, and I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. There's so many, let's call it, attorneys and academics and politicians there. And they don't have real world experience in running operations. I think there's a reason why traditionally a lot of historically great presidents, politicians were in the military, is because they know how to manage and run an organization, especially in crisis, right? They're trained to do stuff at times of war. I think leadership matters. I would love to see a whole new, let's call it, realm of business leaders that know how to build stuff and run businesses, manage them through crisis, and them be the next servants, right, to really serve the people and not themselves, right? Because obviously, if you have business leaders, probably they're going to take a big haircut as far as pay is concerned. So you've got to want to do it. But I really think at the end of the day, like, the whole paradigm is going to shift, because people are going to realize they don't want politics. They don't want this stuff. They want somebody who knows how to run whatever they're doing. Now, if you're a mayor, if you're a governor, that really matters. If you're a senator or a congressman or woman, it doesn't matter as much. They're just, shuffling papers, passing laws, and doing all that stuff. They're not managing large organizations that are touching, the people. And I think people really need to think about their mayors, their governors, and what their background is, and not what their politics is.
Well,
What's your take?
you hit a great point that I'd never thought about, was that, a lot of these people used to be the path to politics was either being a lawyer but also being a soldier, actually going into the military and learning how to manage and how to work in sensitive situations and life-threatening situations, and understanding that, calmness under fire. And I didn't think about that till you just said that, is that, this change in how we're finding these managers, which end up being our mayors and our governors and people like that. I mean, I was totally disgusted when I saw I'm not a Newsom fan, because any guy that makes, X amount of dollars, but then buys a $9.1 million home, is like, well, wait a minute. Again, where did he get, well, we know where he got his money. If you follow the line, we won't get into that, but the sellout, where's the spiritual value? Where's the, but I also look at the people that were there that are in that area, and, they probably never thought this was going to touch me in Wally World. We're safe. We're in this nice little bubble, right? And the bubble caught fire. And it's hard for a lot of people in the United States, I believe, to feel sorry for them when these are, all these houses, Charlie, what are they? Everything $1.5 million to, like, we're not talking about North Carolina getting blown away, right?
So if you look at the average house for Malibu, Pacific Palisades, and then some of Santa Monica, the ones that got hit the hardest, we're talking about $7 million a house. So this is one of the most expensive zip codes in the United States, if not in the world. And for me, being a equal justice person, I just hope that, the people in the Appalachia, Asheville area in North Carolina that got totally blown out, right? No roads, no nothing, that there's some equal, that the government, whether it's federal, state, or local, that, well, we're talking about federal, but that it's equitable, if that makes sense, because you do know that there is going to be a bailout. There's going to be a bailout, and the federal government, and our deficits through the roof, is going to end up bailing out all these people. And the benefit for North Carolina, I think that will draw exposure to, why are you bailing out the elites of society with $7 million homes and not taking care of, normal folks in North Carolina?
Well, they make it difficult. They make it difficult to, they make it so hard anymore to not be a conspiracy theorist, even if you're not, because you keep looking at these facts, and you start to understand that you're either in the most mismanaged place that you could possibly be in, which I think we're finding out is the truth, is that it's politics over ability. But these people are paying for that. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
people in the country, I really do believe they're not so sensitive to the fact that these people voted for this. These people, they said, hey, this is what we want to live in, knowing that, I have to go back to the insurance companies pulling out of there and that big red flag that nobody did anything about. Again, there's where the conspiracy theories come back in. They come in there and they say, hey, we're pulling out because you're not doing X, Y, and Z. And nobody did anything. I mean, how can anybody be that mismanaged?
Well, I think that's 100% on Governor Newsom in Sacramento. And when insurance companies can't make money, right? They're business. They're in the business of making money, and then they're pulling out. That not just from a policy perspective, but why are they pulling out? It's the policy perspective and the fact that potential for a fire is ramped up because of all the things you've heard on the news. And for me, like I come from the side that I feel like it's California. They're to blame, the people in power there, and not necessarily State Farm, which their name gets thrown out there, and the insurance companies. The California's made it so hard to do business there with all the regulations that it just prices and it just companies don't want to be there. It's unfortunate. You got to
Well,
tighten it up, California.
one of the things that I've told you about one of my buddies who's a accident lawyer, and he deals with insurance companies all day long, and they have these books basically, and I'm sure they're spreadsheets, and you would love that. But Charlie loves his spreadsheet. So they know their risk. They know their risk. It's like gambling. I was thinking about this last night. It's like gambling. Let's say you bet on the game, right? You're gambling. The gambling house is not gambling. They're not gambling. They're using hard numbers and they know they're going to win most of the time. They understand they're winning. You're the gambler. You're risking it all. They're not, right? So farmers is that they're the gambler. They know that this is going to happen. They understand it. It's not a risk they know we got to pull out because it doesn't make sense anymore. And so when that happened and those people didn't react to that, then man, that was a major red flag that nobody, Wally World caught fire and I mean, you want to feel sorry for everybody, but then the other side of the coin is that they voted this. They want this kind of environment. And then, I saw the homeless people here's people that are living for nothing for free and they're starting fires and that's the only place where they get fed. And I thought, how crazy is they have this environment where they're burning their own town down. That's just insane.
It's insane. Hey,
we could beat the fires with it.
I mean, we could, we could beat this up big time. Let's skip over to what's trending on X. What is
trending on X?
Real current. Jay Shrek.
Yes.
We have a new president. I don't know if you know that.
So we got a new president?
Yeah. And the inauguration is Monday. So eyes and ears and everything is on Washington and Senate right now to approve his cabinet. What say you, Jay Shrek, on some of these? Do you see Pete, Secretary of Treasury, is up today? Pam Bondi for the Attorney General. What's your take on some of these? And then in general, Trump's strategy with his team this year, or this, 4 years later, it looks a lot different than the ones that he had 4 years ago. I mean, 8 years ago. Yeah. 8 years ago when they got nominated. Sorry.
He's got the experience coming in this time to know what he wants to do, whether people like that or they don't. He knows what he wants to do, and so whether that falls along lines that everybody's acceptable or not, that's okay. But that's. He's coming in with a strategy that's strong. Now these people, here's the thing I think about Trump, though. I don't think Trump will have a problem if somebody goes in and he doesn't like what they're doing. I don't think, Charlie, he's going to have a problem with going like this. You're fired. I don't think he's going to have a problem, even if he has somebody that he picked that doesn't work out. I don't think the guy's going to have a problem with going, you know what, you got to go. And see, everybody doesn't like that, but that's business, right? Business,
Yeah.
not every employee makes it, right? If you're doing your job, you stay. If you're not, you get fired. And I don't think he'll have a problem saying that, hey, I made a mistake on this guy. Well, he won't say that. Somebody else will say that, but he will fire him. There's no doubt in my mind. And I don't, it's going to be interesting. You know, I don't know what George Soros is up to, but you know, George Soros is in the basement and he is concocting bricks and all kinds. You know that there's a strategy out there that, you know, we still have pretty much half the world that's going to be on fire, regardless of what happens, either side, you know. I mean, if you go one way or the other. Here's my thing, Charlie, and I want to ask you this. Take politics and set them aside, really, and say, hey, I don't care who I want safety. I want safety in my home. I want to know when I go home that I'm relatively safe, that I have a police department that's going to protect me and take care of me, right? I want to know that my family's protected. I want to know that my children are getting the best education, and I want an opportunity to make a living and live the American dream. Bring me that. I don't care whose name you put on it. I don't care whose party you put on it. Why would anybody have a disagreement with the things I just said, which I believe are important to the American people?
Well, I would bolt on to that and add something that I've kind of take for granted at my age, but I would say freedom of speech is critical for the Western world. And then I would also say freedom of religion is very, very important in that, you know, freedom to, you know, be who you want to be within the structure of a good society. I think is really important. It's interesting how these freedoms that are embedded in our Constitution, in Bill of Rights, and started with the Declaration of Independence, but it's interesting how they can drift. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about how you can have a mission drift or you could have a country drift, and who's drifting that away, because we know this works. This experiment called the United States of America, almost 250 years old, is a great freaking place to live. And I've been around the world, and I've been to some nasty places that are Eastern culture, that are misogynistic. There's not freedoms. There's structural systems that, matter of fact, if you're in that system and you break out of that system, and let's say you do really well, it can be dangerous to be that person. Why? Because the people who are on the top end of the structure don't want the structure broken. And I just feel from my travels that, and being heavily involved with this the past, let's call it 6 years around the world, is that we take so much of these freedoms for granted. The fact that we do have an elected president, that we should give him a shot with the cabinet he wants. And then, as you said, if he feels like they're not cutting the mustard, he will be doing the old apprentice. You're fired. Definitely. Hey, this is still on trending, but we're going to break this up here a little bit. We're going to jump into sports, because sports trending right now is that the Dallas Cowboys are looking at hiring.
I thought they already did. I thought he
Sanders.
just got hired for $125 million.
Really? I'm looking up here and it says they're in talks about Deion Sanders potentially becoming head coach for, that's what Gronk said.
I read last night he's hired.
What?
First, I read that Jerry Jones was going to be the head coach, which everybody laughed and said, "Well, he already is." And this is well, this is what they have. And then I read that he was hired. So maybe that's the problem with news today, is you can't trust. I got a light coming in there. It looks like I'm kind of enlightened, but that's not really the truth. I'm not. But
well, we're going to ask Gronk AI and get the answer here. As of the latest information available, Deion Sanders has not been officially hired
he's
as
not
the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, then it gets into odds makers and all sorts of stuff. I didn't know Sanders himself has expressed that any move to be an NFL coach would be contingent on him coaching his sons. Does he have one son left? I think the last son's gone. But yeah, no. So what do you think about that? That's what
think when
Gronk just
anybody
said.
takes that
Our
job,
co-host Gronk.
I think that anybody takes that job, you are just, again, let's just talk about mismanagement. That's mismanagement. And he has the right to be a mismanager because he owns it, and he'll tell you that I bought this for me, and I think this is fun, and I'm going to keep running it. He's horrible. He's a horrible owner. I mean, he's and I'm going to throw this out there. So if you ever wanted to get anything from the Cardinals, we're in trouble because I'm getting ready to throw this. So I'm going to put him and Bidwell in the same boat. I think they're horrible owners, and they're causing the problems, and they have blown themselves up. The Dallas Cowboys have killed themselves with the amount of money they play players, and so is the Cardinals. They've invested in, and so. And it's management. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? It's all management, right? If the coffee shop down the street is great and you love it and you enjoy the coffee and the coffee's good and it's in a great environment and the people are friendly, that's management, right? That's management. And if you go there and it's horrible and it's terrible and it's bad service, it's management. And so maybe what we have hit on is that regardless if this is on the political stage or in the national stage, it's management, and these guys got the money. They can do what they want to do. The Bidwells of the world and the Joneses of the world, they can do what they want to do. But inevitably, they're going to be judged on one thing. What's your record? Did you make money at the coffee shop? Is it profitable? Inevitably, that's all that's going to matter is that, okay, I don't care how much money you got. I don't care if you got your own jet. Did you win last year? Well, no. Well, then you mismanaged your team. Well, I'm supposed to get extra time. Well, for example, we had an opportunity, and I'm not beating on Gannon here, but I am going to say that if we would have taken Peyton or if we would have taken the Denver Broncos coach, right? They went to the playoffs this year after 2 years. So ASU took a team that was horrible and won because of management, right? So management matters. Your home state, right? Arizona Wildcats went from being really good, right, to dismal. What was the only difference? Management, right?
Yeah.
Agreed?
It matters. It matters.
People
need to, we should hopefully have a wake up call that sound bites don't matter. Personalities don't matter. We just need real leaders, real managers to execute on behalf of the public, as well as on our beloved, sports teams that we love, AKA the Redskins I grew up watching have been awful for like 25 years. And then they got a new owner. And then the second year they're in the playoffs with our own ASU product, Jaden Daniels. Then
Exactly.
Here we go, management. Then he goes to LSU.
Yeah.
Then the coach of ASU, he gets moved out because of all of his stuff. And then all of a sudden he wins the Heisman Trophy. I mean, it's amazing. We just got into something honesty, integrity, leadership, people trust in people is super important. I totally agree.
Well, and if you can put a God basis behind that, faith basis behind that to do the right thing. Not that everybody goes down that road, but I think when you can, and you're doing it for the right reasons, if you do things for the right reason, the money will come, and I believe that. And if you're doing things, for the right purpose and the right purpose of service, then the notoriety is going to come, the money's going to come, the accolades are going to come from doing the right thing. And I really believe that may be the missing link in what we've talked about in everything we've talked about today. If you look at the faith base behind all of it, and you look at all these successful teams, these successful businesses, even successful politicians, what's the basis they have? They have a heart of service, right? Dillingham here, you can tell the guy cares about his players. It matters to him that these kids get an opportunity to be successful, and they're in an environment to be successful. So if you're a parent, you're like, if I send them to ASU right now with Dillingham, that they're going to have an opportunity to be successful. And that's all we ask for. And have we lost that faith basis for everybody in management today? What's your thoughts?
I think, we just talked about Deion Sanders, and he's a man of faith, but he's also a guy who has a lot of charisma and demands some camera time. He's prime time. He needs camera time. So you like that play on words, but I love him because he stands for something, inside. And then, I think, he's actually a pastor, or may have preached in, I don't know his background, but I know he's a man of God. But yes, that matters in leadership. People want to follow people with great leadership. And a lot of that comes down to the internal stuff behind the scenes, that they're people of faith. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them are, especially it seems like in sports and or in the military, like when you're out in combat type situations, right? You need something, a higher power that's going to guide you through, as we talked about, a world in chaos. Myself as a believer, right? There's all sorts of chaos in my life. The one thing I am proud of is I never turned my back on God. And I think we need leaders that take responsibility. And part of that is their responsibility with their God, mine being Jesus, and having some accountability matrix there, that you're just not living in a world to satisfy yourself.
We were talking earlier about, how you're raised and what you think and where you put all your energy in your life, right? It's that you get out of the house, and then you want to make a name for yourself, and then you want to build a family, and you want to do all these things, and on that journey, sometimes what happens is, I call them the blocks, right? I call them the 3 blocks of life, and the blocks of life are God, 1, that's the top block. Family is 2, and everything else is 3, and everything else is sports, everything else is work, everything else is business. And if you keep those blocks in order, because my theory is, if you don't have God in your life, then your potential to hold on to your family is going to, because you're going to be doing things that are going to jeopardize that family. So God first, and if I put God first, then my family is second, and then everything else goes in that bottom block. And if you ask anybody, well, why did I get this? Why did this happen to me? Well, what's your priorities? Well, my work, I had to put in 50 hours. I had to do 60 hours. I had to do this. I had to provide. Because ego got us. And all of a sudden, I had a job one time where that job was me, and I couldn't separate the two, right? I couldn't separate where's Jeff at and where's the job, because they were the same to me. And then, the problem with that is that somehow when I looked at my blocks, the job became God in the God block. And then God ended up on the bottom, and family was second, because I would justify to you, well, I have to do this because I have to provide for my family. Well, no, that's really not the truth. It was ego that drove me to have that specific job. And I knew going in that was going to be, and I made it a priority. And what happened is that, so I lost my direction. I lost my vision. I lost everything until I got old enough to realize that, no, if I keep my blocks in order, then I have an opportunity to be able to live this life and understand that, my job is to work for God. That's my job. It's to be of service to God. He will provide everything else that I need if I'm taking care of my family. He will find me though. And that's where I've lived my life. The second half of it was trusting in God. He's going to take care of me, and have other people believe that same thing and not get lost in all the worlds of material and things like that. And we all do. I don't know anybody that haven't got lost in some type of material uh, journey somewhere down the ride, down the road. They teach us from a young age that you need more, that you need that car, you need this house, you need to live in this area, you need to be this, and you strive for that, and you lose your blocks. You lose the blocks.
You lose the blocks. I've known you for 20 years. I've never heard you say the blocks. So I'm just kind of getting hung up on that, Jeff.
Well, I don't know where the blocks came from. I've used them for, I wrote them in a guy's book one time. And I thought this was a new thing, but he had told me that, no, you wrote that in my book like 18 years ago. And I went, really? So who knows where this stuff comes from in my mind as I journey down this road. But, it's definitely a journey. I mean, it's, I've been so blessed to be able to have the things that I have and live the life that I've got to live. And I've made a ton of mistakes on the road, and I've made a million different mistakes, and I've fallen, and one of the things I'll tell you is I don't get beat up on a lot of when people do things. Look, we can take somebody in California, right, and the fires and why they did what they did and whatever. I'm not in that position. I don't know what it'd be like if somebody's, I've said this before to my friends that I've never sat across the table and somebody said, hey, I've got a check right here. And on this check, I'm going to let's just put 3 million. Okay. I need you to do this. And it's $3 million, and had it slide across the table. Now I would like to hope that, I would say, no, and then I talk at home. I said, hey, guess what I did today, Deanna? I got a check for 3. I tore it up. And, I've never been there to understand what it'd be like to be able to say no. Now, I hope that I would say no if it's a situation that was not comfortable and not right? Yeah, but I've never been there. So I always remember that when I want to throw the biggest rocks at some people, is that, I've never stood in that area. I've never been in that. And I know even in jobs I've had, in some of the sales jobs I've had, you can get lost in them when the money comes. It's easy to get lost when you go home and you go, I can't believe what I made today. And you're like, well, I can make more. And then the blocks start to shift. So the blocks start to slide down and the things get pushed up that I lose my way. And I've lost my way more than once, Charlie. I hate to say that, but it's very true that I have fallen more times than I get up every time, thank goodness, but I've dropped a lot.
I always tell my kids, I go, the thing you need to learn about life is that there's a lot more losses than wins. And you need to wrap your head around that fact. If you think that you're going to be winning more than losing in life, and I'm talking about instances in life, right? You're setting yourself up to lose, right? Because if think about this. I think about all the things when I was winning. Let's just talk about sports, or maybe it's sales or whatever, doing great at your job. You're not learning as much. And it's only through the losses that you actually digest, in whether it's sales, whether it's sports, whether it's personally, you totally mess up. You do something, you hurt somebody, whatever it is. Maybe it's personal thing. You have to say you're sorry, right? Through that whole process, you actually die to yourself, right? Your own self-centeredness, and make somebody greater than yourself to amends whatever happened. That's where you really start to learn. I feel really bad for people that may be so hardened in the heart, so self-centered, that they stop learning because they're always come from a position that I'm winning, I'm right, I need to lean on people, etc., etc. I mean, let's be real. there, it seems like the past 4 years, maybe longer than that, like people aren't talking to people because one person like is a Democrat, hard Democrat, and the other person's a hard, MAGA Republican or whatever. They're not talking. They're not going to Thanksgiving. They're not going to, like, this is nonsense. This is nonsense, people. Like, I grew up in the DC area. There was lots of people with different thoughts. When I started to hone in kind of, hey, this is who I am and how I think, like, and you get more discussions in college. We were never trying to belittle anybody to try to win and make them feel awful. It feels like the game has turned so much in this culture of chaos that we, even for even for people of faith that have, let's say, a very structural guideline of how you're supposed to act, are not acting like the word is written. That's a good jump off point. Good discussion there, Jeff. Hey, I want to get into something as we switch into a little bit different segment here about something I'm really excited to talk about. And it's about podcasts. Now, I'm not a big podcast guy, but in the past 6 months, I've actually drifted into this, like a lot of the culture, like, has drifted, like media has totally shifted. So podcasts now are, whether it's X, whether it's using AI, Grok, which is our special guest today as we lean in and out on Grok. But what I've really started to appreciate is discussion on podcasts. And I'm gonna lead with this one. So there were 2 podcasts that, and I'm not a big Rogan guy, but I'm starting to like him more and more. I just need to break his podcast down in pieces because they're all like 3 hours long. That's a long time. There were 2 podcasts that struck me this past week. And one is the podcast from Joe Rogan. It's number 2252 with Wesley Huff. And in that podcast, he's an apologist and basically somebody who explains the Christian faith, the Bible, but all the things around it. So think of it from a historian perspective. They're reading all the books. They understand the Quran. They understand all the material. They understand the Jewish writings. And then they take that in to verify, hey, is what the Bible's saying, is it correct? They explain, they're a historian of all the material, not just focused on one piece of information. And so he does this podcast that blew me away with Rogan. And, Rogan spiritually has gone from kind of a 10 years ago, kind of atheist, agnostic, to much more, hey, there's a higher power, and seeking during that time based on some of my reading. But this was the crazy thing. This podcast, I did this research last night using Grok and YouTube, just going through YouTube. It had 2 million views in 2 days and has already had 4.8 million views in 10 days. And if you look at the whole, like this whole thing in podcasts where there's a topic and then other podcasters bolt on to that topic to give real-time feedback, in 10 days, it's had 11.2 million views on YouTube alone. I'm not talking Spotify or any other sources. And to put this, I was blown away. I went through the whole 3 hours, a couple different times I listened to it. When I went through this, I was just blown away. This guy's 33 years old, this Wesley Huff. what he has to say, the conversations they had. If you're seeking and you really want, my thought is the people who will be future believers in Christ and what he did is will not necessarily come from the church, but will be first engaged through other forms of communication like technology, podcasts, and so forth. So 11 million views, 11.2 million views. Now here's the history, because I know you're a historian, kind of. You want a little data, right? You want some
I like
spreadsheet?
data. I like data. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so Gronk, our special guest here, said 11.2 million views is highly successful in 10 days. I'm going to give you a breakdown here, Jay Shrek. NBA Finals 2024, 17.8 million views for the NBA final. And that's a global thing, right? You know, YouTube's global as well. Stanley Cup. Sorry, Canadians. And people who love hockey. 4 million views per game. So that's per game. So I guess if you monetize that out, you know, into 5 games and so forth, but it's only 4 million per game. I need to step that program up. Okay. United Kingdom, we're crossing the pond here. QE2, Queen Elizabeth II, her funeral, 18.5 million views. So, you know, I guess where I'm going here, and we'll throw out the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl had an all-time record of 124 million views. So if you know why they're making the big money, that's a big step up.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot. So,
That's a lot.
So this one podcast had 9% of the Super Bowl views globally. And it just blew me away. And what I think is really cool is it's starting a conversation of faith from a different perspective. And I feel like the youth of today, and even somebody like myself that grew up with a faith, my faith came from seeing my father in action. It didn't really come from standing between 4 walls and hearing a pastor preach to me, although that's a good part of the DNA of who I am in reading scripture. But when I think about like the reason why I'm still in the faith, it came from my father's leadership and watching him and watching his life change and watching him navigate stuff. His thing was anger, right? Navigate him going through that. You know, my dad was, I won't get into all the specifics there, but I could. The other thing I want to bring up is there was another podcast. So let's say this Wesley Huff conversation was pure data historical driven type conversation. Okay. It's great. You've got to see this if you haven't seen it. There is a Mel Gibson podcast. This is 2 days after this podcast. It's number 2254 to be specific, Mel Gibson. Now, the one thing that blew me away when he's doing this podcast, his house is burning down in Malibu. And I was thinking about this. His house is burning down, and a house is a house. I mean, it's like $15 million or whatever. And I know he's lived there for a long time. And who doesn't like Mel Gibson? I mean, you and I, we grew up in that time, Mel Gibson, Tom Cruise. I mean, come on. So many great actors in that time frame that are still great actors. I mean, think of the Braveheart kilt burning up in ashes. This is a lot of people there are like Hollywood. So there's physical structures that are built down, but there's artifacts, there's history. I heard Mel talk about a 400-year-old book, and I didn't know Mel was a huge historian. But this is where I'm going with Mel, and you gotta watch that interview as well. He had in 7 days 7.3 million views. So just in 7 days, and I just looked on the original podcast. I don't know the outflow there, but it blew me away. And maybe it was a time of reflection for him that he lost everything, and maybe had a more outpouring of his heart. And from a spiritual perspective, his faith and how God has moved in his faith. And I won't spoiler alert at the very end, Joe Rogan and him talk about his next project, which I'm really excited to see. But I gained, it was a different perspective because Mel is more of a storyteller. And those two podcasts, I can't get them out of my mind. What say you, Jeff? What's your feedback on that?
I have always been a Joe Rogan fan because of his historical. He brings history to the public. He has a lot of authors on there. He talks a lot. He has a way, and he's knowledgeable about a lot of things. So you feel like you have somebody that has knowledge when they go in. He's a middle guy. He may have been left before, but now he's middle. He's a middle guy. What you're going to hear is a guy that's going to look at both of these and he's going to analyze this stuff. And one thing I like about his podcast is this. In 3 hours, you can't lie for 3 hours. You're going to find out who you are. You're going to find out who that person is in 3 hours, because even a good liar can't lie for 3 hours. It's not possible. And what he's going to do is he's going to expose who this person really is, good, bad, or indifferent. Mel's a little crazy. I'm going to throw that out there. Mel is he's a little cuckoo. I'm not, I still love him, but I'm going to tell you that he's tripping a little bit through life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not throwing rocks at him. I like what he does. I've always been a Mel Gibson fan. But Joe's going to get that out of you. You're going to, at the end of that, you're going to go, I know who this guy, and the only guy that I watched the entire 3 hours of on Joe Rogan was Zuckerberg, because I wanted to find out who this dude was. Is he even real? Is he meta? Is he some type of meta fake person that they've created? And, he had a weird interview. He is always, you can tell he is always calculated. Everything he's saying is nothing's free form. He doesn't do what we do. He doesn't throw it out there. It's all calculated. He's always thinking, should I say this? And that's, again, my opinion, which is probably not that important, but but in 3 hours, you're going to find out who this dude is. And look on there, if you would, find out what Trump's final numbers were on his interview, because I want to see the power of a podcast.
So I'm asking our special guest Grok while you were doing that. I was wondering how many views Zuckerberg had, since I just talked about views. So Zuckerberg viewership, early views of the episode were 250,000 views within an hour. 250,000 views within an hour, and quickly amassed 2 million views in 9 hours. Extended within 24 hours, the episode had 3.5 million views. So overall, it looks like and that was a little bit later than the two podcasts I just said. He had 5 million views on YouTube, and then on the podcast, 11 million downloads. So it looks, if you look at Spotify and YouTube, that's 16 million total views. Now, I was just talking about YouTube. I didn't do Spotify, which Joe Rogan, he has the contract with that. What was your question? Was the Rogan Trump? Okay, Gronk. All right, let's see. Gronk.
Is Gronk sleepy?
So that was episode 2219. Wow, he's had a lot of episodes, man. He cranks them out. Whoa. Do you think he won the election because of this? Initial views within the first 24 hours released 26 million on YouTube alone. Peak views report 35 million views on YouTube. Extended views, wow, By November 7th of 2024, it is noted that including all platforms, 170 million views, 46 million views on YouTube alone. So a couple things there. First off, I know you're a YouTube guy. YouTube was not the dominant source of content. But 170 million views, there's 330 million people, and I forgot how many people that voted. I mean, that's maybe, just maybe, Kamala not coming on for a 3 hour. I mean, that's, you get to know the guy a little bit better. 170 million views.
Made the difference. That I truly believe that three things made the difference for Trump, right? And I really believe that. I believe that he first off realized that who he needed to pair up with, and he needed a Kennedy, he needed a Musk, and he needed some of these people that had power, and those guys had power, and the Democratic Party turned their backs on Kennedy completely, so they stole him. So you put those two guys, and then you pack them up with Joe Rogan, and that's an election, and that's just that simple. It is that simple. And you put JD Vance on there, also realizing that here's another guy that is just your average guy. His cursing definitely made you feel like, okay, he's an average guy you could go have a beer with, right? That won the election. And that, I truly believe that. That's the power of this platform.
Wow.
The power of pushing anything, whether it be good or bad, because it possibly could be bad. Joe Rogan right now wields more power than everybody. CBS, NBC, Fox, any of the platforms right now. He wields more power than all of them probably put together, and that's scary to think that this guy. And I love Rogan, don't get me wrong, but that's a lot of power.
Here's what I'll say about Rogan. A lot of cussing, first off. So it's not a PG-13 like we're trying to produce here. He does real interviews. He's like old school interview. He doesn't really try to drive a narrative. He just is trying to, it's kind of like he's breaking open and peeling open the layers of a person through his questioning. And he's so good at that all of a sudden, if he discovers something within a layer of a person, he just dives in a little bit. And I think that's why people love the people that love, because they don't know what is going to be communicated. He's such a good, interviewer, just trying to like peel open onions after onions after onions and not try to drive a narrative or get a certain question. I mean, don't you think that's part of the skill in the realness of why he's the number one podcast?
Well, I really believe that you're going to get the straight up answer, right, to whatever it is, and you're going to find out who the real person is, and you don't get that anywhere else. Every other platform is biased. I don't think, whether it be they're biased because of a political party or they're biased because of somebody that donates to them to put the platform on. Money always has dictated time and energy. And he is in a place where people trust him. And that's what journalism used to be supposedly about, right? It was supposed to be that you trusted this guy. You trust him. And you can't trust it. The American people do not trust anymore. There's no trust. They don't trust. And so you get a guy, it's scary to think that was what won the presidency for Trump. And I believe that 100%. And that was the guy. He got the guys in the middle. And I've always said this, the left's always going to vote for the left and the right's always going to vote for the right. But the people in the middle, the 35 to 40% people that can be swayed, are the ones that are looking for low gas prices, 401ks that still work, being able to buy groceries, and he's that guy to be able to trust to go, okay, let's find out who this guy is. And, Rogan being a little left swaying also helped a lot of people go, well, this isn't a guy that's some far right MAGA guy. This is a guy that is in probably more left than he is even right. And here he is talking to this guy saying, you know what? I mean, this is craziness. This madness has to stop. And, it's funny that it ended up being Trump that was it's the guy that was chosen, because I would think there'd be so many more different people that would have been, that would have floated to the top, but that's not the way it was. He is the chosen one. And to have the numbers that they had just shows you how far that the Democratic Party is out of just they're completely out of sync with the American people. And when they were pushing mandates down, they thought that was going to control the population, but it did not. It did the opposite thing. It broke them. And it took was a guy like Joe Rogan, and then her not going on that podcast. If she would have called me, Charlie, you know what I'd said? You're either going to go on it or you're going to lose. And that's exactly what happened. She refused to go on, and she lost because she would have been found out. In 3 hours, she'd been found out. And then they said, well, you got to come to me. Then they said, well, it can only be an hour. And he's like, no, this is not the way I do this. There's a purpose behind what I do. I'm going to find out who you are in 3 hours. And if you can't talk 3 hours, then guess what? Then we're going to find out that you're not who we think you are.
Wow. Okay.
That's how powerful this platform is, though, Charlie. We're going to decide presidencies if you don't know that, right?
I know. That was a really good segment there. Hey, we're going to shift gears here.
Which gear are we in?
We're going to shift gears to the top winners and losers this week. And I'm going to ask our friend Gronk, hey, what his top winners and losers are to kick us off. And then I'll hand it off to you.
I'm curious to see what it is. What is it?
As a matter of fact, I was really curious. So I'm going to go through all the handful of his. So the top winners this week for Gronk is bringing it with sports here. Justin Jefferson, despite a Minnesota Vikings loss, surpassed Odell Beckham's record of receiving yards by a player for the first 2 NFL seasons, finishing the day with 8 catches, 116. Gronk, I got to disagree with you. On that. That doesn't make my top.
Throw that out there. I'm going to give Gronk a big. That's horrible.
Next winner here. I was thinking that was horrible too. He will lead. Okay, Joe Burrow. He led to the Cincinnati Bengals to a significant victory over the Ravens, threw for 525 yards. I didn't know that. 4th most NFL in a single game, 525 yards. That is, maybe I need to go back and watch that game. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
I'm still not like, that's not, that
you don't like it? It's not up there?
I mean,
okay, we're going to shift here. We're going to shift here, shifting it up. Andrew Yang, he entered the New York City Mayor mayoral race. I don't feel like that's a big win either. Gronk's not hidden in here. Gronk, you got to tighten it up. His big losers are Mayor Eric Adams of New York City faces multiple challenges, including FBI seizures of his phone, yada, yada, yada. What do you thumbs up, thumbs down on that?
Politician doing dirty. Imagine that. That's such out of the.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking about this. Maybe next week it'll be different, but I would think that if you're going to go in a political thing, that it may be in the left coast, not the right coast or the West Coast and the East Coast. I figure it would be like West with what's going on. And it says Elon Musk's management of Twitter, talking about a Musk's approach. I don't know. There's some Twitter stuff going on. You know about him. The SEC filing a charge against him about buying Twitter and all this type of stuff, which will get wiped out. But there you go. I'm gonna.
Gronk is that smart kid that doesn't know what's going on. He's that like really smart kid that if you would ask him everything about the problems, the work, the math, but if you asked him, hey, what's going on with the team? What team? He doesn't know any of that. He's a big he went horrible today, Charlie. I hate to say it.
Gronk
Horrible.
Gronk is probably the guy or gal in high school who is playing violin or playing drums on the
And he's
the
in
band.
the third chair too. He's not even in the number one chair. He's like in the third chair. So Charlie, what's your big take this week? What's your winner and your loser this week?
Okay. So my big winner, well, I'm going to say with my big loser, and I feel like it's pretty obvious. Well, not obvious because there's two in my mind or three in my mind that are historic losers. But I'm going to go with Joe Biden. And here's why he's the big loser. Big loser. I'm going loser first. I feel like the way he's exited is and whoever his team's around him, like the majority of the population has voted that they don't want his policies anymore. They don't want it anymore. We're not talking like a fringe vote, electoral college, this type of stuff. They don't want it. They don't want it. And he's done all this executive orders, all sorts of what is he doing? Like he pardoned so many people, and even his son pardoned him back to basically right before he got involved was like 2011. Like he's done stuff that is starting a precedent that has never been done before. And I feel like the name of this podcast is Finish Strong. And I guess what I'm saying is he is not finishing strong. And I mean, have some respect for the position, have some respect for the industry you're in, and finish freaking strong, dude. I mean, ridiculous. My big winner, I feel like I need a drum roll for this, Jay Shrek. Jesus Christ. And this is why.
Why?
These views, if you watch the 6 hours of content on the podcast I referenced, there's over 20 million views on YouTube alone. Having a discussion about faith, about the data, the science, the historical stuff, and then the stories of transformation. And unless you've seen and I'm talking Mel Gibson specifically, unless you watch this guy pour his heart out, and I think he's totally sincere about his encounters and with Christ and his challenges, and he talks about that like he is a man of many faults, right? And aren't we all, right? So yeah, aren't we all? And I wrote a note down when I was thinking about this. And more specific, I had Jesus Christ as a winner, but more specific to the Mel Gibson, I'm coming back to that. This is something you said. You said he's kind of on the edge. In my closing thoughts, I wrote on the bottom, Jeff, I said, greatness has an edge or craziness to it. And like, if you're a fish just floating around in the ocean, right? You're just floating around in the ocean like everybody else. But when you think of, I don't know why I'm talking about this fish analogy, but when you think of a salmon battling upstream, right? Just battling to lay the eggs. Like it's just battling. Like there's a craziness to a salmon, but there's a greatness to a salmon too. And if you don't have that little edge, and I'm sure you could come up with a much better analogy, like there is a, there is like an edginess to that. And if you don't have that, I don't know if you can get to where you need to be if you're just if you're just trying to be like everybody else. That's what I'm saying. So my big winner is Jesus Christ, all the impressions, all the discussion from different vantage points with the great interview from Joe Rogan.
So, it's funny you say that, only because the only thing I'd like to jump in on a little bit is that whoever is running the White House, whoever that might be, I'm not saying Joe Biden's not, I'm thinking that maybe he isn't, but whoever it is, whoever you are out there, you'll never hear this podcast most likely, but let's say that you do. You're
talking about my big loser here, right? Yeah. The loser for the week.
Yeah. You are actually, you're so out of touch with what's going on. Whoever that might be, whether it's Joe Biden or whether it's the staff or whatever, you guys are not. You need to come out to the Midwest. You need to come out to Arizona. You need to find out what the real people are really experiencing and feeling, right? You need to go to the Midwest and you need to see what's going on in the world and get out of Washington. And I agree with you that his perception of what reality is way off. He's already dug a hole that he can't get out of, and he'll live with that, and he, if he just walked out quietly, right, he can at least have the dignity of realizing that most people forget. They won't remember how horrible he was, but you don't want to do anything that's going to make you go, oh my gosh, now I remember what he did at the end. It was horrible. He set a precedent that's horrible, though. He told Donald Trump, in a sense, that your son can go anywhere in the world and get whatever he wants and do whatever he wants to do, and then dad can pardon him. Okay, so he said that basically by doing what he did. He said that now that's okay. Not that he would, because I don't believe he would, but he's saying that anybody else could. He's saying that you can do all the dirty business you want, and then I'll just pardon you, and because I can. And that set a whole league of things in action that it really is going to be damaging to the culture of America in the future, I believe, James. Saying that that's okay. Somebody's calling me. Oh, it's James. I'll have to get James a little later. But it's going to ring since it's going through the phone. We're just going to have to wait till it dies out. But that's what you get when you're live, Charlie. You get that kind of stuff. You get real life experience. People do call you, right? And that does happen. It's almost over. And there it is.
So you're basically bolting on to what I was talking about as Joe Biden being the big loser for the week, and not finishing. Do you agree with me? He hasn't finished strong.
Oh, it's been a whole. I mean, it's definitely been disrespectful to himself, his whole presidency, in my opinion, because it's not. I mean, not to even try to get even political, but when your first action in the White House 4 years ago was to shut the pipeline down and gas prices went through the ceiling and nobody reacted to that. I don't care if Trump did that, I'd be up, I would be sideways. So it's not like I'm partying this whole thing, right? It's man, we felt an immediate hit on our pocketbooks immediately when the man walks into office, and he's from that state where that mattered, and those people didn't even care. They're like, well, they do now. You can see how they voted for the first time. They turned their backs on him. So I agree with that. I have to go with worse, though, is that and you know where I'm going with this.
I'm wondering where you're going with this.
It's Newsom. I mean, Newsom, I would do the Mayor Bass, right? But she's still here and he's here.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And that's why he gets it, because, and talk about finish strong. So did you hear the interview where he actually said, when they said to him, a reporter says, and they're eyeball to eyeball, and he says that all these reservoirs were full. He says it, they're full. The reporter says, sir, that's not accurate. The one for this area was empty. And he said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, that's why I'm going to investigate that. You just said that every one of them was full. And when you can lie that readily to the people, and you don't even think about the consequences because you've lied to them so many times that and you've got away with it. Because these people, the only thing we can, I'm going to give you a winner. The winner, he just came to me, right? Because I listened to his podcast.
So that's your big
Adam
loser.
Carolla.
Okay, we're in alignment on that.
Adam Carolla, man, he laid it down hard, and he laid it down like, you know what? These same people are going to blow him up. The same ones are going to blow him up that voted for him. Because he is going to come in there and they're going to realize how screwed up this entire thing is and how bad it is. And here's something I hope isn't true, but I believe it to be true. And this is like, just shows me, let's put California in a nutshell. And I mean that in a nutshell, Charlie, because they're nuts, right? And I'm not saying every one of them, but a lot of them, right? So I'm going to help you fight fires. And you're going to tell me that my truck has to meet a certification for smog before you're going to let me drive my truck from Mexico, from New Mexico to Arizona to Washington, and you're going to stop those trucks and make sure that we can't use them if they don't get certified. You can't draw something off of that. I hope that story is false, because that would tell me that California, the best thing could happen is it fall into the ocean. That's a horrible.
I'm asking Grok that right here,
because if that really happened and that's how screwed up they are, I just hope that's misinformation. I hope it is, because if that's how they handle their business, then and then Newsom talking about, here's the guy selling the fact that the city's still on fire, and he's going to tell you how great it's going to be when he puts this new wave city involved. And the same thing they talked about in Maui. And so it's like, you don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but you believe that if this stuff's really going on and this management is so bad that they're out of their minds. They're absolutely out of their minds.
Oh, this is Gronk is saying that is a false claim.
I hope it is. Because if it's true, that would be, but see, I know how bad the emissions are in California, because even 30 years ago, they changed all the emission standards for the whole entire trucking business. And California alone increased truck prices.
This is interesting, though. It's not totally wrong. It says Gronk here, sponsored by XAI. It says fire trucks from Oregon and other states, when they were coming across the border, underwent routine safety checks when they arrived in California. These checks were focused on ensuring the vehicles were mechanically sound and safe to deploy to fight fires, and not emissions and smog certifications. So I guess this comes down to the red tape, right? It's right, and it's kind of wrong. Meaning, like, if these guys are coming in from Oregon or wherever they're coming in, Arizona, like, let them through to fight the fire. Don't pull them over for an hour and do all your safety checks and all that. Like, come on. This is where the red tape, the regulation gets in the way of all the things.
And that's Newsom.
It's ridiculous.
That's Newsom right there. There it is, right? There it is. That's the mismanagement. This dude is out of control. And, for some reason, California, they like this. And this is just what they're getting. I mean, LA's already out of control. The homeless situation, whether they had a fire or not, they are out of control. At San Francisco, they're out of control. And they're gone. I mean, this is, you talk about like just, it's people taking payoffs. It's people selling their souls. This is really what it comes down to. That's what's happening in our government. Is the problem is that people are selling their souls for money. They're taking these buyouts, and that's all of politics right now. Yeah. I know some of the parties here, for example, because I have a little insight in some of them, is that the biggest problem is that when you send somebody to Washington, I don't care which party you're in, you want them to vote of the people, for the people, and by the people.
Yeah.
You don't want them being rogue when they get to Washington. And that's the problem that all these parties are having. These people go there on a promise, and when they get there, they don't do. I mean, they work for us, and that's where the loss is, right? Is that they're supposed to follow whatever their party wants, right? They need to vote party. Well, they get up there and they go rogue and they go rhino or they go blue or whatever. If you're red and you got voted red, stay red. If you're blue and you got voted blue, stay blue. Because that's what the people that voted you in wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's not what's happening is they go in, they go rogue and they do whatever they want to do. And there's nobody there to tell them they shouldn't. Well, I know some of these parties here, for example, are really pushing hard on holding those politicians accountable once they go to Washington or once they go to the state capitol. Newsom, and again, I shouldn't say anything about him because the people there want this to happen. They want to be unsafe. They want to be in this situation. They want to be uninsured. They want all this stuff. They thought they lived in a bubble. They have to, because that's what they're voting for. So when you vote again in California coming up, I'll guarantee you the same group of people that burnout city will vote the same people back in because they're brainwashed.
Well, I tell you, the people that got wiped out, their houses got wiped out. I think they're gonna think differently. That's my take.
I hope, Charlie, that they come to their senses as they're walking through their burned out homes going, you're part responsible for that. You're responsible for that when you voted for that. I hate to say that. I know it's harsh and but it isn't, again, it's not like dealing with the people on the East Coast that had a natural disaster happen that couldn't have been helped. This is people that voted for this kind of society, and this is what they're getting. I'm just hoping that they don't come here. Okay, we're in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't want you. Stay out there. Rebuild. Spend 5 years rebuilding.
Hey. They've been coming here for a while, man. The whole state of Arizona politics is totally different.
And blow us up. Okay, leave that stuff out in California. Now, isn't that harsh? But then this is what you're getting from me,
Well, I think people used to say that. Now they understand the reality of what's going on there. Hey, so here's our last thing. So I added this in, Jay Shrek. This is our little mystery question.
Oh, I wanted the mystery question.
This is the mystery question. So the mystery question of the week is, and I'm gonna go Gronk again. I'm gonna let Gronk, sponsored by XAI, answer this question first. The mystery question is, what are the top 3 songs that you hear in between sets at a concert?
And Gronk answered, because Gronk he right now is pulling like 0 for 10 with me. Gronk has been horrible.
Gronk, let's see how Gronk. We got 3 coming, so we'll grade this out with Gronk. And I'm gonna grade you out too. And then I'll go next. So, and then I'll let you close out the whole pod. But here we go. Number 1 from Gronk is, my wife likes this song, Toto Africa.
Oh,
thumbs up, thumbs down. In between sets. Now, Gronk, to be specific, he said it depends on the genre of the concert, right? But this was saying all this as a disclaimer. This was Gronk's top 3. So I'll go through the next. You like Toto Africa?
One concert I would go to, and I like Toto. So I mean, it's not like I got him on my playlist. So it's not like I don't like the band. I have them on my playlist. But that's the last song I'd want to hear at any concert that I wanted. Well, it may not be the last.
In between
song.
sets. Let's keep going. Let's keep going here. The next one was this one. This isn't. It's Queen. Don't Stop Me Now. And I listened to that song last night and I was like, I don't know. That is a thumbs down for me. Can't do
Here,
it.
I'm just getting. This is the sign.
I mean, there's
You
some
tell me.
good Queen songs,
Look at
but that
this.
one's not my song.
Okay, here's how I'm going to say this, like this.
Right. Okay. And then the last from Gronk. So Gronk's not doing too well right now. The last one is Beatles, Here Comes the Sun. Now, for me, in between sets, going to get a Coke, pretzel, popcorn, whatever. I think that one could work in between sets. What says you? You're not good with that? Okay. Okay. So Gronk's not looking good right now. Here's my top 3. All right. And they're all kind of in the same genre. So get this. Ted Nugent, Stranglehold.
I actually heard Stranglehold before. I can't tell you which concert, but I've actually heard that. So yes, I agree.
Yes. Like the instrumental, it just plays long. So that's my number 1. So your thumbs up on that one?
I'm thumbs up on that.
Stevie Ray Vaughan, Little Wing, as number 2.
I would pick a different Stevie Ray Vaughan, but I definitely would pick a Stevie Ray Vaughan. I would definitely.
So you wouldn't go with Little Wing. You wouldn't go with that one.
I'd go something a little more kicking.
Oh, okay. And then last but not least, and I did hear this in concert, actually at an Eagles concert, Doobie Brothers in San Francisco at AT&T Stadium. And it was done by Zach Brown. And it was Allman Brothers, Whipping Post. Those were my top 3 in between set songs. What say you, Jeff?
You know, I like Zach Brown's writing. I think the guy, I really do. I like he's a great musician, but it'd be like getting if you're going to hear the Whipping Post, play the men that made it. Right?
No, I'm with that. I was saying I heard this song live from him.
Right.
But yeah, Allman Brothers, definitely.
So anything by AC/DC, right? Because the whole purpose of this thing is to get you fired up, right? And there's something about power chords that get you fired up. And again, whether that's Ted Nugent,
you can't do that. You got to give me a song. You can't give me anything from AC/DC.
Well, I mean, Runaway Train. What is it? I mean, anything from AC/DC.
Okay, anything.
I mean, seriously, you could play. Play Highway to Hell. You could play all that stuff. Anything.
All right.
They kick. That's what I like about AC/DC is they kick. They're simple, but they get your head going like this.
But their songs kind of blend, don't they? Don't they kind of blend? They're all kind of the same.
Police would be good. Rush would be good. Anything that gets you going. Man, great concerts. The Police put on a great concert. Not the best I'd ever saw. What's the best show you ever saw, Charlie? You physically saw, not what is the greatest? Give me your couple greatest rock concerts that you ever saw.
We're going off script here, but I would say when I was a kid in the 70s, I got to go see Kiss. And you remember when they were around,
kids.
That was like a big deal. I don't know, 75, 76. I was young or whatever. So, but that's not the best concert. It was, you know what I'm saying. The best concert I've been to, I definitely think was that one I talked about. It was Doobie Brothers leading off. Zach Brown didn't really know his stuff. And then Eagles in San Francisco, looking out on the bay, just, in a stadium. I think that's the best concert I've been to. But it wasn't just about the one band. It was about the whole experience.
The whole experience, like the show,
yeah.
the whole
encapsulated
the whole, like,
like when you come out and you're like, for how much I paid for that ticket, I feel like I got a really good return on investment from the entertainment experience. I think that was by far the best one.
Well, one of the reasons I asked that too is because there's a lot of bands I really love, but they don't go live, right? They don't put the show on right live like they do in the studio, or so to see a live band that is, I mean, my number one band. I mean, I saw the Eagles long run like in 70s, right? The long run tour, which was fabulous back in the day. But I'm going to have to go with the best live show I've ever seen that was unbelievable. 1 and 2. The Who was number 1
Oh, that would be
and
good.
Queen was number 2. And
Mm.
and Queen wasn't my favorite band. That's what's funny. It's not like they probably were maybe a top 10, maybe at the end of high of top 10. But man, the show was fat. And the Who were the tightest band I've ever heard play in my entire life. And Springsteen put on good shows, but I don't want to mix of my political beliefs and my music. Please keep them separate. That's what I want. I don't want the mix. Even if it's a party I like, I still don't want the mix. I don't want I like my music separate from my politics. And that's the only problem I have with Springsteen is, it's don't be, I don't pay for this, even though you have the right to do it, but you kind of, he tarnished his reputation with me personally, which nobody else cares. Don't get me wrong. But Queen was not my favorite band by far, but that show, this is the only place that they brought in Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. When you walked in, they had like 4 trailers full of generators, massive generators on a truck, because their show was so big and so many lights, kind of kissish in a sense, right? It was fabulous. It was back in the day when live shows meant something. It really, truly did. And, music is such a big part of most people's lives anyway. It's special. It really is. And I think these artists don't understand that, these are songs to their lives, right? These are soundtracks to your life, is some of these songs that you remembered. And they're kind of sacred in a weird sense, that music is a very spiritual thing. And I finally saw Bob Dylan, and he's like one of my favorite guys, because I like to write songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, his live shows, you got to love. It's different. Dylan, it didn't pan out, even though I still loved him. It didn't pan out for me. So there's my performance, my ups and downs in the music side of this podcast. You realize we've been on for 1 hour and 38 minutes?
Yes.
you do know that. So it's not like you were like, oh, it flew by and it was awesome. It's more like, oh my God.
I'm the spreadsheet guy. I keep tight attention on all the things that are going around.
Yeah, I just don't. And I don't have
Spidey's
with me.
I don't have Spidey senses, but
you'll never have any problem going 3 hours if you ever want to, Charlie. Trust me.
No, I appreciate you, brother. Been a really good time. Looking forward to you on the next podcast as we talk about the week in general. And I guess my parting notes is God bless you all. Shalom. Peace be with you until we get back to you next week. And it's been a great time.
And keep your blocks in order for a simpler life.
Yes.
Keep your blocks in order.
And finish strong. And thank you so much, Grok, for being our special guest today.
Adios, amigos. I'll see you. Like Vinny says, I can cut that off right there, but there you are. See, your mic was going in a little bit in and out. I don't know what that was. You might have to check your settings and see if you can change your range of your voice. It'll have a dial on the back if it does, where you can go back and change it to what it is. If it's got it, it may not have it on it.
It doesn't have it. It has it on the app, and I can't. I need to figure out how to get that hooked up by next time.
Because it was a lot.
Because the app, you can change everything.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to get it going.
How do you think it's
recording? I don't know if it kills us, I'll call you, but I'm going to end it.
Okay, end it.